So this video is for people who tell me that, oh man, when I eat, my stomach sticks out like 9 feet and then it's as hard as a rock. And there's a difference between bloating, where you have that, where you just feel full, and actual distension, where the stomach is really sticking out. And this is known as functional abdominal bloating and distension. So this is a real thing. Don't let somebody tell you that it's not. But some of the things that people tell me that their doctor told them is causing this can be a little bit concerning. Like some people are told, like, you're swallowing too much air. All that air you're swallowing is making your stomach stick out. So just don't swallow so much air. That'll be $800. Okay. And some people are told, well, it's been shown that people with things like IBS can be overly sensitive or overly aware to their stomach and their digestive system, and so it might feel like things are really sticking out even though it's just sticking out a little bit. Yeah, I think that's probably not it. It's really sticking out a lot. And some people are told, well, oh, this is just in your head. One of these studies that I'm even going to show with you says that, okay, we're going to try these treatments for these types of things, and if that doesn't work, then the person should be given antidepressants or psychological therapy or hypnotherapy, because it's all in their head. Like, it's sticking out. It's not in the guy's head. I'm going to give you something for your head. So let's look at this study here on bloating and abdominal distension. And they say that FABD, which is what all the cool kids call it, may be diagnosed as a single entity, the sole or cardinal complaint, or may overlap with other functional gastrointestinal disorders such as functional constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, and functional dyspepsia. But it seems that there was a lot of disagreement about this situation, and they even have this European consensus. I'll put the link to that and these other studies in the description below, where they were basically saying, look, a lot of people are just being diagnosed with this when it's really one of these other issues. So can we just kind of all agree that we're going to look at all these other issues first and only give a person this diagnosis if these other things are clear? And the things that are commonly seen with this are chronic constipation, IBS, functional dyspepsia, and pancreatic insufficiency. And a lot of people will kind of view this as like, well, there's gases in the system, and when those gases go to an elevated level, then it's really going to expand either the stomach or the intestinal tract, and all that pressure is going to push out, and when the pressure is extreme, it can actually extend the person's stomach. And that makes some sense. But when we're looking at these gases, in most cases, this is about bacteria creating these gases. Now, when we're looking at constipation, well, if those bowels aren't moving, that could block those gases from escaping, and now those gases are going to accumulate and push things out more. So that makes sense that constipation can be an issue. If you're dealing with this and you're dealing with constipation, the constipation has to be fixed. The great news is that it can be fixed. We hear from people every day that have been dealing with chronic constipation for decades, and they fix it when they understand the actual underlying causes. I'm not going to dig into that a whole lot in this video, but I'll have links in the description below on our video on fixing constipation for good. If that's an issue for you, that really has to be corrected. But when we're looking at this bacteria in the system, in most cases there's a lot of bacteria either in the stomach or the small intestine, and a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO issue. And we shouldn't have a lot of bacteria in either of those locations. Most of our good bacteria should be in the large intestine here. So when there's bacteria in these places where they shouldn't be, they have the ability to ferment a lot of our carbohydrates and fibers and such, and then that fermentation process is going to create these excess gases and create the bloating and even the distension. And other people will say, well, it's undigested carbohydrates that are the problem. We should have these enzymes like amylase that help us break down carbohydrates, and there's some amylase in our mouth that takes place, but most of the amylase that helps us break down these carbohydrates comes from the pancreas that gets kind of squirted out here into this duodenum area. And some people will call that a duodenum, but all the cool kids say duodenum. So when we don't have enough enzymes to break that down, now they're going to go undigested, which means they're going to be fermented more by this bacteria, even in the large intestine, and the fermentation is going to create all those gases that creates the bloating and the pressure and the distension that's going on. So what we want to look at is, why wouldn't that be happening correctly? So when we look at this study on pancreatic enzyme therapy, we see that there are things that happen in the body that trigger these enzymes. So what we have to understand is that these enzymes that are released by the pancreas have to be triggered to do so. So the thing that triggers those is hormones here in the duodenum, and the thing that triggers those hormones is stomach acid, leaving the stomach and going into that duodenum. So for a wide variety of reasons, a lot of people are not making enough stomach acid. And then that food doesn't really get acidified correctly, and the acid doesn't come down here and trigger all these other things to happen, like the gallbladder squirting bile down and the pancreas squirting out bicarb and all these enzymes, so we can really digest our food. So if someone's stressed, that can restrict their body's ability to make this HCl or stomach acid. Millions of people around the world turn off stomach acid on a daily basis on purpose. So it's very common to see someone that doesn't have enough stomach acid. So that can be what's creating the problem with this carbohydrate digestion, is just that the enzymes are not being triggered to help us out. Now, here's another problem that comes from this lack of stomach acid, is the acid is what helps us break our food down in the stomach. It acidifies it and starts that breakdown process. So when there's not enough stomach acid there, now it has to break down by rotting and fermenting. And this rotting and fermenting would usually not happen in a digestive tract, but when there's bacteria where they don't belong and the food is not being acidified correctly, well then it has to break down by rotting and fermenting. And remember, that fermentation process is going to create a lot more gases, a lot more pressure, and even distension. So what's interesting about all these issues that we see with this distended stomach problem, constipation, IBS, dyspepsia, pancreatic deficiency, we have videos on all of these topics. And all of these issues have multiple underlying causes that can create or contribute to them. But the one baseline that we see in all of these, lack of stomach acid. That has the ability to create or really contribute to all of these problems. So we're starting to see something that makes a little bit of sense, but it's something that most people's doctors don't tell them about. The treatment for most discomfort when it comes to the digestive tract is, hey, why don't you take a PPI and turn off stomach acid more? A lot of discomfort can come when there's like an overgrowth here and just a little bit of acid. A small amount of acid mixing with alkaline waste from bacteria and all these trouble that's going on in there has the ability to magnify symptoms. So when you turn off stomach acid, it can improve some of those symptoms temporarily, but then all the problems that come from a lack of stomach acid are going to create further trouble down the road. So when we look at this study on the potential role of hypochlorhydria in the development of duodenal dysbiosis, they help us understand that this stomach acid is not just there to help us acidify the food, it's the barrier to the whole digestive tract. When these varmints come in on the food that we're eating, they're supposed to die in an acid bath. So when someone doesn't have enough stomach acid there, the bad guys come in, they create a dysbiosis issue here in the duodenum, and then that comes down here and we get that small intestinal bacterial overgrowth that's going to create all those gases and all that pressure. So this hypochlorhydria issue is a really big deal, and when we can fix that problem, we can improve a lot of these symptoms, and we can improve our ability to actually break our food down and get the nutrients out of that food. Wouldn't that be something really crazy? So when we look at this study here on mealtime supplementation with betaine HCl for functional hypochlorhydria, they took people that were dealing with this low stomach acid issue, and they had them supplement with betaine HCl capsules, which is basically a synthetic form of the HCl that your stomach is supposed to make, so that they could acidify their stomach while they were eating food, really break it down, trigger all these hormones to have all the other aspects of digestion to work correctly, and they saw improvement to all of these dyspepsia type symptoms. So we can see that we can fix this problem synthetically and maybe help the body fix some other issues that will allow it to start making stomach acid again on its own. So if there's an overgrowth either here in the stomach or the small intestine, that has to be taken care of. That has to be reduced. We have a lot of videos on fixing like H. pylori infections and SIBO issues. We'll put links to those in the description below. But a great step to improve any kind of bloating and pressure is to supplement with these betaine HCl capsules. Help your stomach acidify the food the way that it's supposed to, and we can relieve a lot of these symptoms. Now, if you're going to supplement with betaine HCl, you really want to know how to do that. There's a lot of very common mistakes, and if you do things the wrong way, just putting a little bit of acid in there again can really magnify a lot of those symptoms. So you want to know how to do that the right way, along with reducing any type of overgrowth issues. If you're new to this channel and you don't know how to do those things and fix your digestion, we'll have a link in the description below for our totally free digestion course, and that'll walk you through figuring out which aspects of digestion are not working correctly for you and steps you can take to fix those. And just keep in mind that I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice and telling you to, acidify your stomach or to stop taking a PPI that turns off stomach acid if your doctor told you to do that. I'm basically just a professional stand-up comic turned nutrition author, because when I lost my voice for 8 years and 23 different doctors couldn't figure that out, I had to dig for my own answers. So now for 20 years, I've been teaching health professionals in more than 40 countries how to help their clients fix the actual underlying causes of problems instead of just covering up the symptoms. But I hope this gives you some insights into what may be creating this distension and hard rock stomach going on for you, because you shouldn't be a situation where you bounce a quarter off your stomach for the wrong reasons. It's not because you have a six-pack, it's because there's a keg there from all this bloating and pressure and distension. We want to correct that, allow the digestive system to work the way that it's supposed to, and then we don't have to look like we're pregnant even though we're a dude. So if you want to learn more about the common mistakes that people make when they start supplementing with HCl, you can jump over right now and check out our video on 9 mistakes when supplementing with HCl. I can't wait to hear about your results.